So coming up this Thursday is going to be the first event of the PFL regular season for 2024, and it should be a pretty good one. It is the women's flyweights and the men's heavyweights. Now these don't typically end up being the most exciting divisions in the PFL, but I think with these matchups they are going to be. Of course, PFL recently acquired Bellator, and they've signed quite a few new fighters as well from the UFC and other promotions, which I think is just going to make it the highest level PFL roster that we have seen yet. So if you haven't watched PFL before, I think now is actually a really good time to get into watching that promotion, because I think that this season is going to be the best one by far, to be honest. I think there's going to be good matchups here. I'm expecting a lot of finishes. There's a lot of interesting fights as well, especially a few rematches, which does make things a little bit interesting in that sort of way as well. Before we do get into my predictions for the card though, of course for $10 per month you can get access to all of We Want Picks premium membership services on their website, which includes Jacob's bets and Angelo's bets for the UFC, as well as all of their tools that they have for helping you place your own bets in the UFC. An article that I write every single week, an article that another channel writes every single week, as well as the AI Fight Picker, and everything else there. You can get a 3-day free trial if you do sign up using my code ARTEM. And with all of that being said, let's get into my predictions for the first event of the PFL 2024 season. So kicking off the card is going to be what I'm assuming is a bonus fight and isn't part of the tournament. It is Bryce Meredith taking on Ty Johnson at bantamweight. Bryce Meredith is a prospect that Bellator was building up for quite a while. He's a very good wrestler. He had a big college wrestling background, a 3-time All-American, and he did make the NCAA finals 2 times, and that has translated quite well into his MMA career. He has managed to dominate everyone that he's fought so far, but he has not fought anyone as good as Ty Johnson, in my opinion. I do think that this is the toughest matchup that Bryce Meredith has had to deal with. Ty Johnson doesn't have the best record. He's 13-6, but he's on a 7-fight win streak. He's a very good grappler, and he's very dangerous on the ground. He does attempt leg locks, he attempts arm bars. If he's on his back, he can throw up chokes as well. And of course, he tries to get your back for the rear naked choke and finishes from there. He is coming off quite a few decent wins. You know, he's not really fighting the best levels of competition, but he is getting it done, and now he is in the PFL taking on Bryce. I think Bryce does win this fight. He's minus 900 on the odds right now, and Ty Johnson is plus 600. But if Bryce isn't a guy at minus 900, I would recommend you put in parlays, because I have seen Ty Johnson taken down before in his fights, and he's throwing up submissions. He's being dangerous. You know, he's trying to get leg locks. He's trying to throw up arm bars, and Bryce Meredith potentially could get caught in something like that. I don't think it happens, though. I do think Bryce Meredith gets it done. It is also worth noting as well that I don't think Ty Johnson's a very good striker. If you watch his fights, he's leaving his chin way up in the air. He doesn't seem to be very aggressive on the feet either. He's got no defense. Bryce Meredith doesn't seem to be the best striker either. In fact, his most recent opponent, Miguel Pimbear, was actually finding a lot of success on the feet in the very few moments that the fight was on the feet, though. I think Meredith is going to be able to get down Johnson. Johnson, I don't think has very good takedown defense, probably because he actually wants the fight on the ground. But I think Meredith is going to be able to dominate in top position, avoid those submission attempts from Johnson, and overall just get the decision win, or maybe find something with his ground and pound. I am going to pick Meredith here as the massive, massive favorite to open up the card. Now we've got Marcelo Golm taking on Jordan Heiderman. I'm going to go with Marcelo Golm in this one here. I mean, Jordan Heiderman was on The Ultimate Fighter season 30, I think it was, one of the more recent ones. And then after that, he did go on a little bit of a run in the PFL. He beat Patrick Brady, who was undefeated, but he was like 39 years old or something like that, and wasn't beating the best levels of competition. And in that one there, he just kind of kicked Patrick Brady's left knee. But I think Brady's right knee gave out, so he won by injury in that one there. But then he got dominated by Denis Goltsov, who was going to be fighting up later in the card. Marcelo Golm is a former UFC fighter, actually himself, and he did go 0-3, I believe, in the UFC, but since then he did make a bit of a comeback, fighting for Bellator, beat a couple of decent fighters. Davion Franklin is a very good winner, very good wrestler, and then he took on Daniel James in a main event. I picked him to beat Daniel James, and he got knocked out in the 3rd round, which was, or maybe it was the 4th round, but he got slipped by Daniel James. So I was a little bit upset with that, but I do think Marcelo Golm is just going to be better than Jordan Heiderman, to be honest. I know that's a pretty bad example to pick someone, but on the feet, Jordan Heiderman, he doesn't look too great. He's very hittable. In fact, I saw him hurt by a much worse opponent in Chad Johnson here, but this was brutal. If you guys haven't seen this, this is actually a brutal finish. Of course, Chad Johnson soccer kicked Jordan Heiderman, but then Jordan Heiderman won by DQ. Heiderman was out cold, though, and that was actually the fight that got him on The Ultimate Fighter, which is interesting. Golm is going to want to wrestle Heiderman. I do think he gets it done. Golm's a good grappler as well, so I think he's going to be able to get the takedowns. Of course, a lot of people are picking him to win by KO on this one here. I'm going to pick Golm. I'm probably going to side with submission more likely because I do think Golm is going to look to get the fight down to the ground. It's another fight where Golm is minus 400 and Heiderman is plus 300. So you've got very wide odds on that one. And another fight which you've got very wide odds on is Lucas Brennan taking on Dimitre Ivy. Once again, Lucas Brennan is a prospect that Bellator is building up. And now, of course, PFL has acquired him. And I think PFL are going to continue doing that exact same thing. Because we've got Lucas Brennan who is 9-0. And not even 24 years old yet, so why would they rush him right now? And I think that's what they're doing. I think they're giving him a fighter which Lucas Brennan should be able to beat. Lucas Brennan is a very solid grappler. He has been given some problems on the feet in the past. Dimitre Ivy is a pretty slick striker. He's got a very interesting sort of style where he likes to fight from range and then he comes in and throws a couple combinations. Throws a lot of kicks as well. Can get taken down. I have seen him taken down before. Carlton Minus was finding some success in the wrestling, but then he obviously knocked out Dimitre Ivy at the very start of the second round. I think Brennan's going to be able to get him down, and I think Brennan is also going to be able to find the submission relatively soon into the fight. I'm going to pick Brennan by maybe like first round, second round submission. Ivy's a good striker though, he really is. He's quite smooth, he's quite clean with his striking, he's going to be better on the feet than Brennan in my opinion. But Brennan's recently been going out there and beating some pretty decent fighters as the prospect that the PFL is now going to continue building up. So I like Brennan, I like him to take down Ivy, and I like him to get the submission. Brennan is minus 900 and Ivy is plus 600. So another fight with very wide odds. And now Chelsea Hackett is going to be taking on Jena Bishop in the first women's flyweight bout of the tournament. Chelsea Hackett is 4-1 and she's very inexperienced. And I know that she is 24 years old, but she took about a 3-year break after losing on the Contender Series to take on Kai Bennett on PFL. And she looked really good in the grappling in that matchup because that's what she struggled with in the past. In fact, on her Dana White's Contender Series fight, where she was only 3-0 and 1, so she'd only had 4 pro fights against Victoria Leonardo. Leonardo was kind of just able to use her massive size advantage over Hackett and take her down and just dominate her with the ground and pound in that second round. But then Hackett come out after 3 years away, and she showed off very improved grappling. She did knock down Kai Bennett in the second round and then finished her off, but she looked a lot better. The problem is, though, Jena Bishop is a former Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu world champion as a brown belt, and she is now a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and she's been fighting in MMA for a lot less time, for a lot shorter period of time than Hackett, and she's already got more experience. She's already fought 6 times. She's got really good wins. She beat Joane Barboza, who is now in the UFC. She beat Luana Santos, who I believe is now in the UFC as well. And then she beat Ilara Joane in Bellator. I think Jena Bishop should be able to get the fight down to the ground here. I think she should be able to take down Chelsea Hackett. Hackett is a very good striker, though. She's very fast. She's got power. She did actually hurt Leonardo at one point in her Contender Series matchup. But the grappling is what Hackett's biggest weakness seems to be. And Jena Bishop is a former Jiu-Jitsu world champion. I don't think this is a good matchup for Hackett. I know Jena Bishop is 38 years old, but it's because she had a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu career before coming over to MMA. I think she should be able to get it done, and I think that Bishop should be able to find the submission at some point in this matchup, so I'm going to pick Bishop by finish in this one here. And now Kana Watanabe is going to be taking on Shanna Young. Shanna Young, of course, is a former UFC fighter. A lot of people might remember her run in the UFC because it was pretty recent. In fact, she was only cut from the UFC about 1.5 years ago after losing to Miranda Maverick. And before then, she actually managed to finish Jena Mazzani. She come into the PFL and beat Sandra Lovato, who was on the Contender Series last year, and that one was able to get quite a few takedowns, and also looked pretty good on the feet as well. Kana Watanabe really should be able to win this matchup, though. Kana Watanabe, in my opinion, beat Ilimale McFarlane. I thought that was a really, really bad decision. That fight took place in Hawaii, which is McFarlane's hometown. And of course, Kana Watanabe is not from Hawaii, so I think there was some home time, but I mean, you can't tell me Watanabe didn't beat McFarlane. You could argue that's 30-27 Watanabe. Watanabe was looking really good in the grappling. She was doing more damage as well. I know that Ilimale McFarlane was getting some takedowns, but Watanabe was doing much more damage and was just scoring a lot more points in that matchup. But she come back recently. She beat Vita Arteaga, who is 7-5, but is better than that record suggests. I think Watanabe should be able to beat Shanna Young. Minus 420 is a pretty big favorite. Young is decent. I mean, she's not too bad, but Kana Watanabe at the end of the day has fought for a title in Bellator. I believe she fought Liz Camus for the title, or maybe it was Ilimale McFarlane. The point is, Kana Watanabe is a top 5 Bellator level fighter, and Shanna Young wasn't good enough to cut it in the UFC. I think Watanabe is going to be able to get it done here. She can wrestle, she can grapple, she can also strike as well. I think she's just overall the better fighter than Shanna Young. And now we've got Steve Mowry taking on Oleg Popov, and this is a fight that I really struggle to pick, because I think there's a very good chance Steve Mowry can get it done, but I'm going to pick Oleg Popov in this matchup. But I don't feel good about it. Steve Mowry is 6'8" with a 79-inch reach, so in other words, he's massive in general, and he's quite big for heavyweight as well. Well built, and he is in much better physical shape than Popov, who is 6'1" at this weight class and has a bit of a belly to him, but Mowry is really slow. That's one thing I noticed about watching Mowry's fights, is that he's just not fast at all, man. Like, he throws punches very slow, his reactions are very slow. His takedown defense is pretty good, but he mainly uses his size to get away with it. And Oleg Popov, he's got pretty fast hands, but what he wants to do is he wants to shoot for takedowns, which does make him a pretty boring fighter to watch, to be honest with you. But he's got good cardio. Like I said, he's got a bit of a belly because he does. But this guy just shoots takedowns over and over and over again. The problem is, what if he doesn't get them? Because there's a very real chance he won't be able to take down Steve Mowry as often as he was able to take down Gokhan Sarikam, who was pretty much a pure striker in this weight class. In that matchup, Oleg Popov was just shooting takedown after takedown after takedown, and he was getting a pretty decent amount of them. But he showed good cardio, he was still shooting for takedowns in round 3. The problem with Popov, though, is that's kind of all he does. He was shooting for takedowns from range, and if he didn't get them, he would just stand up and shoot another one. I think he should be able to get Steve Mowry down, though, so I'm going to pick Popov by decision here. He looked very good when he's on top. I don't think Steve Mowry is going to be able to get up very easily if he gets put on his back. But Mowry's 6'8", and he's a lot better physical shape than Popov. And I know just picking people based on that shouldn't really be a good reason, but it's heavyweight, you know, and heavyweights are always hard to predict, which is why I'm really struggling with this fight, but I'm going to go with Popov, man. I like the cardio. I think he's got good cardio. I mean, Mowry struggled a little bit with Asayev. It ended up being a draw. He lost to Moldavsky, but that was just because Moldavsky was so much faster than him on the feet and was just boxing him up from the inside. I'm going to pick Popov, but I don't feel good about that one. I don't feel good about that one at all. But I am pretty confident in Taila Santos to beat Ilara Joane. I think this is kind of just a little bit of a gimme fight, honestly, for the PFL to give to Taila Santos, because Taila Santos, of course, is going to be one of their biggest signings over after she got cut from the UFC. I actually can't necessarily recall the exact reason why she was released from the UFC, but I think it was something to do with a visa and her partner not being able to come over to the USA. So that has cut her. But Taila Santos is kind of in an interesting situation because I think she got kicked out of her gym because she wasn't paying her gym fees. So now she just trains at home with her partner as her coach. So maybe we see some regression in her skill set, but even then her skill set is really in her striking, but I think she's a good enough grappler. No. What am I on about? He said it isn't her striking, but she was able to out-grapple Valentina Shevchenko. But Ilara Joane is like a pure striker, you know, and I think that Santos is going to be a lot bigger than her. I think that Santos is going to be able to get the takedowns, and ultimately I think that Santos is going to be able to find that submission over Ilara Joane here. Joane is on a 2-fight losing streak, 2 fighters that were able to take her down, Jena Bishop being one of them, of course, who's fighting earlier on in the card. I like Taila Santos to use her size, to use her grappling advantage. I think she submits Joane in like the first or the second round in the PFL, can have a big, hey, look at Taila Santos in our promotion now kind of moment. I'm going to go with Santos. I'm going to go with Santos by submission. She's minus 900. Again, a few minus 900 fighters on the card. Santos is one of them. And now we have Blagoy Ivanov taking on Sergey Bilostenniy. Maybe a controversial pick, but I'm going to pick Sergey here. And I'm actually going to pick Sergey by KO. Which is, I know that it's actually kind of a crazy pick because Ivanov has never been KO'd. Everyone knows how tough Ivanov has been. He was stabbed before, which is why he's got that kind of crazy scar in his belly there, or I guess just below his chest. But Ivanov is getting old, man. He was released from the UFC, signed to the PFL, and now they're giving him Sergey. And Sergey, his one loss recently was because he knocked down Tyrell. Fortuen was about to finish him off, and then he got DQ'd because he punched him in the back of the head. And then he takes on this guy called Kasim Araz, which is a similar stylistic matchup to the Blagoy Ivanov fight, where Kasim Araz, although he's not 5'11", he's 5'9", and spinning back kicks him to the face, and Kasim Araz goes stiff on the way down. It was actually kind of an insane finish, and then Sergey finishes him off after that. Sergey, man, if you watch this guy's fights, he has crazy power, and he's so fast for heavyweight. Like, he's just so quick for the weight class, man. It's so impressive. And everything he lands, you hear it land. He throws a body kick. He throws a head kick. You can just hear it. You can hear it. And Blagoy Ivanov, you know, he's 37.5 years old now. I know he's never been finished, but he's taken damage in the UFC. He's been out-wrestled in the UFC. Ivanov's whole fighting style as well is actually probably going to give Bilostenniy a lot of problems. Because if you do watch Bilostenniy's fights and you go to the fight where he did win a decision, this guy, Fernando Rodriguez, he made it close against Bilostenniy by just doing what Ivanov does, and that is just holding on to you against the clinch and winning by control time in the clinch. I know Ivanov does get takedowns as well, and Bilostenniy's takedown defense hasn't really been tested too much yet. Bilostenniy's 6'1", but he's not like Oleg Popov, where he's just got a big belly on him. He's actually quite a big 6'1". He's got a lot of muscle to him, a little bit of a belly, I guess, but he's a big 6'1". He's big for the weight class. I like him in this matchup. I do think he can finish Ivanov. I know that's kind of a crazy pick because Ivanov's never been KO'd, but he's slowing down, you know, and we've seen Bilostenniy knock out guys like Ivanov, shorter guys at heavyweight. I think that Bilostenniy's going to go up there. I think he's going to have a pretty good performance, and he's going to win here. He is the fighter that is not being picked by the majority on Tapology, but I think he is the favorite on the betting odds. He's minus 180 against Ivanov. See, I think that's too wide. I am picking Bilostenniy, but I honestly, minus 180, I think that's very, very wide for a fighter whose takedown defense is questionable, who has struggled with clinch control in the past. But I think Bilostenniy is going to be too fast on the feet. I think he hits too hard as well. I know Ivanov hasn't been finished by very hard hitters like Derek Lewis and Augustus Sakai, who's a Muay Thai fighter. But I think Sergey gets it done. I do believe in Sergey. I think Ivanov's getting old. Yeah, that's really what it comes down to. Honestly, I think it's just going to be too fast for Ivanov. And now Dakota Ditcheva is going to be taking on Lisa Mauldin, and I believe that Lisa Mauldin is going to be the toughest fighter. The toughest test for Dakota's career so far. Dakota Ditcheva absolutely dominated in PFL Europe, I believe for 2 years in a row she won it. Absolutely dominated last year. I mean, the fighter that she fought in the finals was 2-1. So that was kind of the level of competition she was fighting over there, which isn't very high, but she's a very, very good Muay Thai striker, and she knocks out most of her opponents. You know, she's got good power, very, very fast as well, very technical. But Lisa Mauldin's decent, you know. I was actually watching her fights kind of expecting her to be terrible, considering Dakota is minus 1350. I believe upwards of minus 1500 in the betting odds. But Mauldin's good. She's fast on the feet, you know. I thought she looked pretty good on the feet against Desiree Yanez, and then she ended up pulling guard, which I thought was weird, but then got top control and won by submission there. She beat Helen Peralta, who's now a bare-knuckle boxing fighter, which is cool, I guess. But she wins by wrestling. Lisa Mauldin is a wrestler, but her striking isn't non-existent. So Lisa Mauldin is going to be going out there and shooting takedowns against Ditcheva, and Ditcheva's takedown defense is going to be tested against Mauldin here. Of course, I'm picking Dakota Ditcheva. She's minus 1400 on the betting odds, but I wouldn't put her on parlays, man. I would not be betting on Dakota Ditcheva. Don't put her on your parlay, even if you're going to get a little bit of a boost from it. I don't recommend it, because Lisa Mauldin, although I think she loses, she's kind of live at plus 750. It's kind of something you would never ever say when you look at odds like this, but if you do actually watch Lisa Mauldin's more recent fights in the PFL, she's not bad. She's a decent striker. She's a decent boxer. She's got pretty good vision on the inside too. She can get scrappy. You see that against Desiree Yanez, and then she pulls guard and then reverses. She's a good grappler. She's probably a better grappler than Ditcheva. It just kind of comes down to, can she get close to Ditcheva and can she get the takedowns? I'm going to say no, because Ditcheva's striking is just too good. She fights from the range so well. But Mauldin ain't bad. Mauldin really isn't bad. I think she's been disrespected for the plus 750 line here. Kicking off the main card is going to be Tyrell Fortune taking on Daniel James in a rematch. The original fight, or the first fight, happened in Bellator, where Daniel James knocked out Tyrell Fortune in the second round, quite brutally as well. In my opinion, I thought it involved a lot of punches and blows to the back of the head of Tyrell Fortune, and it did get overturned to a no contest. Not because of that, though, because Daniel James actually failed a drug test for that matchup. So now they're going to be doing a rematch in the PFL. So let's see how that one goes. The way that the original fight went was that Tyrell Fortune was finding a lot of success in his wrestling against Daniel James, and actually nearly got a rear naked choke in the first round, but Daniel James miraculously survived, and then went out there in the second round and knocked him out. Daniel James has got crazy power, man. In fact, he was actually kind of fighting on the regional scene for a long time before getting a big opportunity in the PFL, and he was beating some good guys, man. Like, he's beating some pretty solid opponents in ACA, which is a Russian promotion. He comes over to Bellator, knocks out Tyrell Fortune, knocks out Marcelo Golm, but then loses to Gokhan Sarakam, who is a pretty decent heavyweight striker himself. I'm picking Tyrell Fortune to win this one here. I know he lost the original fight against Daniel James, but Tyrell Fortune's a really good wrestler, and I think he's going to be good enough to get James down. James is 6'6" with an 80-inch reach, but in the original fight, Fortune was finding that success in the wrestling, and I think now that he has been KO'd by Daniel James before, I think he will be kind of looking to go into that wrestling a little bit more, and I think he's going to be able to find that success that way. So I'm going to pick Tyrell Fortune to win the rematch in this one here by decision, or maybe like a late finish, maybe a late submission, or a late ground and pound TKO. But I do think Fortune gets it done by taking James down over the course of 3 rounds. The next fight is going to be Liz Carmouche taking on Juliana Velasquez in a trilogy. And this fight is actually very cool to be on PFL, because it's actually 2 former Bellator champions in women's flyweight. And these two actually fought each other twice already, and Liz Carmouche has won both times. She won the original fight about 2 years ago, where she beat her by ground and pound TKO. And then they did the rematch, as Velasquez was a defending champion and was undefeated at the time, where Liz Carmouche then won, once again using her grappling, and won by armbar submission. Liz Carmouche has defended the title actually a few times now since originally winning it. She defended against Deanna Bennett, who missed weight, and was actually beating Carmouche, and was finding a lot of success against Carmouche in top control and dominant position. But eventually Carmouche was able to latch up a submission pretty late into the matchup and beat Deanna Bennett that way. And then she took on Ilima-Lei Macfarlane and was able to finish Ilima-Lei Macfarlane in that matchup there. Carmouche is 40 years old, and she's not getting any younger, but neither is Juliana Velasquez, who's now 37 years old, and hasn't fought since those Carmouche fights. At least Carmouche has defended the bout 2 more times, which she's fought 2 more times in the last year, against pretty decent competition, whereas Juliana Velasquez just hasn't fought at all. So I don't really know what was going on there, especially now Velasquez is coming back against that same opponent that's beaten her twice already. I think that Carmouche is going to have a pretty big confidence advantage for that. And we've also seen that Carmouche is the better grappler. So I think we're going to see Carmouche go out there, use offensive wrestling and offensive grappling, of course, and just find a way to beat Velasquez in that way. I'm going to go with Carmouche. I'm actually going to go with Carmouche by round 3 submission. I know it's a 3-round fight, so there's a good chance it does go to the distance. But Velasquez hasn't fought for over a year. She's lost to Carmouche twice now. Her confidence against Carmouche can't be that high. So give me Carmouche. I'm going to pick Carmouche by a very late submission. Decision is pretty likely though, but I'm going to pick Carmouche there. And now we have Denis Goltsov taking on Linton Vassell, who just keeps winning. I pick against Linton Vassell, and he keeps winning, man. He beat Valentin Madowski recently, or about a year ago, and I picked Valentin Madowski to beat him there, and I just keep trying to fade Linton Vassell because he's getting older, and his fight style isn't a fight style which I would expect someone to be able to keep going as they get older, especially at heavyweight as well, because Linton Vassell, he fights like a massive welterweight. Like, this guy is fast, man. He's a striker, and he's just fast and really technical. He throws double jabs, he throws leg kicks, and he just strikes from range. He uses that 80-inch reach so well. And I'll say it for the fourth time, he's just fast at heavyweight, man. Denis Goltsov, though, he's not going to be as fast as Vassell, but he's got crazy power, man, and he's coming off a really good year last year. I know he did get slipped by Brennan for Hayer, but prior to that, he knocked out Heiderman, or finished Heiderman by submission, sorry. Knocked out De Castro, and knocked out Cesar Ferreira as well, and he slipped De Castro bad, man, and that was pretty early on into the matchup as well. I'm going to pick Goltsov in this one here. Goltsov's got crazy power on the feet, but he can wrestle as well. Linton Vassell keeps proving me wrong, though. If he does win, I wouldn't be that surprised. But he hasn't fought in a year himself. He's nearly 41 years old. As I said, it's not really a fight style that I can see. He just doesn't age. It's a fight style I struggle to see him being able to keep up with as he gets older, because he relies on his speed, he relies on his athleticism and his technique. Goltsov's younger, he can wrestle. I think that's how you've got to beat Vassell now, I guess, is because Vassell's just too good at striking for these guys. Goltsov, he can wrestle, he can grapple. He's also got crazy power on the feet, and he's also a big guy. He's 6'5" with a 78-inch reach. And he's built pretty similarly to Vassell as well. So I'm going to go with Goltsov here. I think he gets past Vassell, but Vassell is a guy that just keeps beating guys when I pick against them. So we'll see how that one goes, but I like Goltsov here. A lot of people picking Vassell. Smart pick, considering the fact that he did just beat Madowski, I should say, sorry. And looks really good at doing it. Caught Madowski with a right hook and then finished him off with ground and pound from there. But I think Goltsov, on the feet, he's dangerous. He can mix it up with the wrestling as well, which I think is probably how you're going to have to beat Vassell at this point. So I'm going to go with Goltsov here. I'm going to go with Goltsov by finish as well. And now there's Ante Delija versus Valentin Moldavsky. And I'm going to do it. I'm going to pick all favourites for the card. It's not really something you like to do, of course, but it is PFL. And most of the time, the favourites do win. But in this one here, I do like Moldavsky again. I think he's going to be too fast for Ante Delija. I was watching Ante Delija's fights back because I saw, of course, in the Tapology picks, most people are picking Ante Delija. So I was trying to find a reason to maybe go with the majority on this one here. But I just can't really do it. I think Moldavsky's too fast for him. I think he's too good at boxing as well to deal with him. Moldavsky is a guy that gave Ryan Bader a lot of problems in that one year. He had a lot of success on the feet. He hurt Bader on multiple occasions, had Bader wobbling. And then, of course, the Mowry eye poke did suck. But then he boxed up Steve Murray. And the rematch, he was boxing up Steve Murray for 50 seconds before the eye poke as well. I think he's too fast. I think he's too good for Delija, man. I really do. Delija, he's good, you know, of course. I mean, he's on a big win streak now. I believe he won the $1 million against Matthias Scheffel. What was it? Was it that fight there? But Matthias Scheffel's been KO'd like 9 or 10 times now in his career. Maurice Green was able to win a round against him. In fact, Maurice Green, I believe, even took him down in that fight. There was a lot of clinch control from Green. Green was finding a lot of success using his range as well, which is probably because Ante Delija hasn't really had to fight someone with the range of Green before. But Moldavsky doesn't fight like that. Moldavsky closes the distance and he boxes you up on the inside and then he gets out. And I think he's going to be able to do that against Delija, who is a good fighter, don't get me wrong. He's a decent wrestler with big power. But I don't think he's as technical as Moldavsky. I don't think he's as fast as Moldavsky. And I think that Moldavsky is just going to be able to get in there, box up Delija with his close distance striking, and then get out and avoid the shots from Delija. Defend takedowns if they come. Maybe get takedowns of his own if he needs to. And I think he's just the better fighter. I know he's not on the best run recently. You know, he did lose to Bader. And then no contest happened. And then he lost to Vassell because he got caught with a right hook. But I think he gets past Diliha. I'm going to pick Madovsky to win this one here. I think his boxing's too good for Diliha. I think he's going to be able to hurt Diliha. And I think he gets it done. It's only a 3-round fight as well in the main event, of course, because it is part of the tournament. But let me know what your predictions are. I feel like there's a lot of very close fights in this one here. I think there's a lot of cases for some underdogs to get it done here and get some big upsets. But I do like Diliha in the main event. Who do you have in the main event? Who do you have on the card? And let me know. And I'll see you guys in the next one.